The Gray Man, Montreal, Quebec. 55 years has passed since Toronto children's author Sarah Hart first saw The Gray Man, but she still remembered it like yesterday. She and her family, parents, three older brothers, and an older sister were living in a ground floor apartment in a house on Montreal's Rue Street Urbain back then, in the 1940s. Sarah was 7 at the time, and she and her mother were the only ones at home. She was stretched out on the floor in her brother's bedroom, contentedly coloring a picture of a flag when a soft, "Oh no!" from the kitchen made her pause. She figured her mother had probably just dropped something, so she wasn't worried, but she didn't look away from her picture and toward the open bedroom door. That's when she saw him, a man wearing a suit, a hat, walking slowly past the doorway, down the hall toward the dining room. He didn't look familiar. His footsteps were silent, and his overall shape appeared grayish and almost translucent. In 2004, Hart would recall how her 7-year-old self had thought he seemed see-throughish. Not sure of what she had just seen and not wanting to upset her mother, she kept the spooky appearance of the gray man to herself. The second time Sarah saw him, her family had just returned home from a day trip in her father's old Ford. It was a warm summer evening and a gentle rain was falling. As her dad pulled up in the front of the house, he suddenly announced that everyone had to stay in the car. Hart recalled spending a long time in that hot and crowded Ford that night before her father finally let them get out. She also clearly remembered looking out rain-spattered window and seeing the gray man standing at the front door of her house. Again, Sarah said nothing about seeing him, and her father said nothing about why he kept his family in the car. Another time, though, when something very spooky happened in the house, Sarah's dad did speak about it. The family was gathered around the dining room table for the evening Passover meal, or Seder, when a knife suddenly rose up from the table and dropped back down on a special food-laden plate, cracking it in half. In a fear-filled voice, Sarah's father uttered one unforgettable sentence: "Satan is in this house." Then he insisted that the ceremonial meal continue as if nothing had happened. Looking back on that night as an adult, Hart wondered if some otherworldly presence had been in the house for a long time, and that was what the landlord had kept the rent so low. A few years after the Cedar Super incident, Sarah, one of her brothers, were talking about an article in the weekend newspaper about ghosts and hauntings. A sidebar to the article mentioned that ghosts occasionally appeared as rectangular illuminations. "I saw that," Sarah blurted out, and told her brother about how she had woken up one night to see a rectangle of light on the wall. Curious, she got out of bed, climbed up on the dresser, and held her hand in front of the bright shape to see if her hand cast a shadow. If it did, she remembered thinking, she would know that the light was bouncing off a mirror or getting in past the window blind in some strange way, but her hand cast no shadow. The light seemed to be coming from the wall itself. Sarah scrambled down from the dresser and headed to her parents' bedroom. When she told her mother what she had seen, her mom said she must have been dreaming and let her snuggle in beside her for the rest of the night. After Sarah told her brother about the ghostly light, she found the courage to mention the gray man. To her amazement, he admitted that he had seen him too. Then he told her about a frightening experience he had after coming home from school one afternoon. He had just opened the door when he felt a cold hand clamp its clammy fingers around his wrist. He wrenched his hand away, slammed the door behind him, and ran all the way to their grandmother's house that was 6 blocks away. Buoyed by the knowledge that they had both encountered the gray man, the siblings finally decided to tell their mother about him. She was shocked to learn that they had seen him, confessing that he had often appeared in the kitchen, but that she hadn't wanted to frighten anyone by talking about it. In 1954, when Sarah was 12, her family moved out of the house on Rue Street, Urbain. On moving day, just before the truck loaded with the possessions was about to leave, Sarah and the brother who had been gripped by the ghostly hand were taking one last look around to make sure they had left nothing behind. As they were leaving the room, her brother reached for the light switch on the wall, but he never got to flip it off. Suddenly, the light went out on its own. Maybe, Hart remembered, thinking at the time, this was the gray man's way of saying goodbye.